Hi everyone, I am Dr. Sabrina Brown, and your instructor has asked me to talk to you today about injury and violence. And I happen to teach CPH, violence, crime, and forensic epidemiology. And I'm offering that in the fall. If you have any questions about that course or any of the lectures that I give for you today, feel free to contact me. I will make sure that your instructor has all of my contact information. And I'm going to do 3 parts so my ramblings don't bore you too much. The first part that I'm going to talk about is the introduction to forensic epidemiology. But first I want to say I hope you're all well and adapting, maybe coping with what's going on and our new reality right now. And again, reach out to me if you need any information. Public health. Must talk about public health when we're talking about forensic epidemiology. What does public health do? Well, they organize federal, state, and community efforts to protect, promote, and improve the health of its citizens. So the goal with public health is to reduce the amount of premature disease and disability in the population. Law enforcement, they stop further crimes. They also protect the health and safety of the public. They apprehend and convict criminals. They look at suspects, victim or victims, and their particular interest in these sorts of situations where they're collaborating with public health is evidence. They want to make sure that they are involved in the chain of custody because their outcome is criminal. They want to prosecute and remove that entity from the population. Public health wants to stop further cases of disease and outbreaks. They also want to protect the health and safety of the public. They build the science base for future prevention, and their approach to evidence collection is more scientific. They're looking at records, they're interviewing the well and the unwell, and looking at more of the health-related activities so they can stop the spread of the disease or the outbreak as soon as possible. Epidemiology is a branch of medical science that deals with the incidence, distribution, and control of disease in a population. Epidemiologists have a spectrum from actually investigating the outbreak at ground zero or patient zero, trying to find the etiology of an outbreak or an epidemic or a pandemic. And then the other end of the spectrum is surveillance activities, which could go on for years and years after an incident, trying to understand the impact on those affected. And there's different definitions of when it is an epidemic or when it's a pandemic, and it is the occurrence of more cases than would be expected in a population. So what if it's an intentional outbreak? It's not something from mishandling of food to other unintentional ways that an outbreak occurs, or a natural outbreak. When does it become intentional? Well, the cases are extremely rare. Anthrax, plague, smallpox, for example. An ordinary disease but out of season, or an area, or with the wrong mode of spread. They cannot solve it with usual techniques. There were threats received, or there was actually a group taking credit. So then the local police or the FBI are notified. They help with field operations, forensic unit laboratories, bomb squad, hazmat teams. They respond when there's a threat of bioterrorism, for example, and are involved in public health preparedness. If potential acts of terror become a crime scene, then they help secure the crime scene and make sure that evidence, again, is collected in a way that they can prosecute and deal with the criminal activity. They also are involved with further evacuation if necessary. State public health departments are involved with rapid testing. They monitor all the positive cases, notify the public of what's going on if it becomes something that the public needs to be aware of, and they support disease surveillance and the epidemiological investigations. And overall, the state public health department, they monitor community health status and assess disease and the public health significance ongoing. And they're working to help us all be disease-free. All right, let's transition to leading causes of death. So in ages 1 to 44, a leading cause of death is unintentional injury. And I want to focus on suicide. I will in one of the 3 lectures that I give for you. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34. And homicide is third for ages 1 to 4 and then 15 to 34. So suicide and homicide are ranking second and third of all leading causes of death in the United States. So how do we address this problem of violence? It's a nationwide health problem. It results in over 50,000 homicides and suicides a year. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which was primarily disease involvement and surveillance, kind of took that, what they had been doing with other forms of surveillance, and started to look at how they could respond to surveillance of violence. We cannot solve a problem or prevent a problem if we don't understand what's going on. So in order to better understand what was going on with these violent deaths, the CDC developed the National Violent Death Reporting System. And this is a nationwide, state-based surveillance system designed to track trends and characteristics of violent deaths. And the goal is to reduce these deaths. And I'm going to give you my PowerPoint through your instructor so that if you want additional information about the NVDRS, you can have access to their website and learn more about it. This was begun in 2002, and I'm happy to report that recently the whole nation is funded, so we can really understand what's going on in the nation. When just a few states are funded, it's not really generalizable to the whole nation because of the variability between regions and states and jurisdictions. Kentucky was funded in 2004, so we've been collecting data for quite some time. And this is my area of research. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I was the principal investigator on this starting out in 2004, and have been working with this data since then. Everybody's funded, I said that. Types of information that are gathered. We gather information from death scene investigators, crime laboratory testing, toxicology, vital statistics, coroners and medical examiners. And what we're looking for is demographics about the victim and suspect, the circumstances around the event, which that's the uniqueness of the system, because prior to the system, researchers and really anybody that was interested in violence prevention were limited to the use of death certificates, which they don't provide circumstances precipitating or historical circumstances leading to a violent death event. We collect alcohol and drug information that was used by the victim, type of location where the event happened, type of weapon used, and importantly, relationship between the victim and suspect if it is a homicide situation. And our definitions in the system are homicide, a death resulting from the intentional use of force or power, threatened or actual, against another person, a group, or a community. Suicide, a death resulting from the intentional use of force against oneself. Legal intervention, this is when a police officer or other peace officer is involved. Unintentional firearm death, these are called accidental deaths. And undetermined, where the coroner, who is the death scene, the chief death scene investigator, and the person who certifies on the death certificate cause and manner of death, they cannot determine intent in the case, and they rule undetermined. And then sometimes they'll change the ruling later, but not necessarily. So I'll leave you with that for now, and see you back here for a second video soon, I hope.